Somewhere, right now, a storm is rolling in. You hear the first low rumble in the distance, and something in your chest tightens. Before you even decide to be afraid, you know exactly what it is. You know it can't reach you, and still, your body reacts like it's under attack. Now imagine you had no name for it, no science, no forecast, no glass window between you and the sky. Imagine the ground under your feet, no roof over your head, and a sound like the world itself splitting open. What would you have thought was happening to you? For our earliest ancestors, that wasn't imagination. That was every single storm. Thunder wasn't weather. It was an event, a message, sometimes an attack. And the way early humans reacted to it may explain something strange about your own body that's still happening right now. Let's start with the sound itself. Thunder isn't just loud. It's the loudest natural sound most humans will ever hear up close, capable of hitting well over 120 decibels, roughly the volume of a jet engine at takeoff. And it arrives without warning. No buildup, no gradual increase. One instant of silence, then a wall of sound that seems to come from everywhere at once. Neuroscientist Michael Davis spent decades studying what's called the acoustic startle reflex, the automatic, lightning-fast reaction your body produces in response to a sudden loud noise. His research found that this reflex happens in a matter of milliseconds, faster than conscious thought, wired directly into ancient structures deep in the brainstem. You don't choose to flinch at thunder. Your body decided for you before the sound even finished echoing. Here's the part that should stop you for a second. That reflex isn't something you learned. Human infants show it in the first days of life, long before they understand language, danger, or storms, which means this fear is older than culture, older than myth, older than fire. It's baked into the architecture of the nervous system itself. So picture an early human, standing in the open, decades before shelter meant more than a rock overhang or a stretch of trees. The sky darkens, the air changes, then a flash, and less than a second later, a crack of sound loud enough to rattle bone. There is no explanation available. No meteorologist, no physics of electrical discharge and rapidly expanding air. Just an overwhelming, invisible force that seems to strike from nowhere and vanish just as fast. What would you conclude standing there with nothing but your senses and your fear? Across nearly every ancient culture we have records of, the answer was the same. Something enormous was angry. The Norse believed thunder was the sound of Thor's hammer striking as he battled giants across the sky. The ancient Greeks gave the sky itself a ruler, Zeus, who hurled thunderbolts as weapons of judgment. In Hindu mythology, Indra commanded thunder and storms as a divine warrior. West African Yoruba tradition speaks of Shango, a storm deity whose anger split the heavens. Independently, on different continents, with no contact between these cultures, humans arrived at strikingly similar conclusions. Anthropologist and folklorist James Frazer spent years cataloging these patterns across cultures in his sweeping study of early religion and myth, and found storm gods, sky gods, and thunder deities appearing again and again in unrelated societies, each one interpreting the same terrifying sound through the same basic lens. Something powerful, something with intention, something that could be pleased or provoked. Isn't that strange? Different continents, different languages, different gods entirely, and yet everyone reached for the same explanation. Not chance, not chemistry, anger. Why anger specifically? Because anger fits the pattern. Thunder arrives suddenly. It's loud, disruptive, and impossible to predict precisely to an animal, and that's what early humans were, biologically speaking, before agriculture, before cities, before writing. A sudden, overwhelming, unpredictable event reads as danger, and danger, with no clear source, gets assigned intention. Something must be doing this. Something must want something. That single leap, from unexplained event to angry agent, may be one of the oldest patterns of human thought there is. There's a second layer to this fear that most people never learn about. And it isn't just about the sound you can hear. Engineer Vic Tandy, investigating unexplained feelings of dread in a supposedly haunted laboratory in the late 1990s, discovered something unexpected. Certain very low-frequency sound waves, below the threshold of human hearing, could still be felt by the body and were linked to sensations of unease, anxiety, and even the feeling of being watched. His research, published in a peer-reviewed journal, helped popularize the idea that infrasound, frequencies too low to consciously hear, can trigger genuine physiological fear responses, and thunderstorms produce exactly that. Massive, room-shaking infrasound well below conscious hearing, arriving before and alongside the crack you actually notice, which means part of what your ancestors felt during a storm wasn't just what they heard. It was something their body sensed before their ears even caught up. A wave of dread with no clear source, arriving just ahead of the sound that would explain it. Think about what that means. The fear came first. The explanation came after. Exactly backward from how we assume fear should work. Now, fast forward. Somewhere along the way, humans stopped being purely at the mercy of the sky. Fire, then shelter, then walls, then roofs, then glass. Each one added a small buffer between you and the raw experience your ancestors had. Today, you can watch a thunderstorm from a dry couch, phone in hand, radar app open, knowing exactly how far away it is and roughly when it will pass. And yet, you still flinch. Somewhere in your chest, that same ancient circuitry still fires. Not because you believe a god is angry, not because you think the sky is hunting you, but because that circuitry was never designed for belief. It was designed for speed. It doesn't wait for your rational brain to catch up and explain that you're safe indoors. It reacts first, the way it reacted for hundreds of thousands of years, back when reacting first was the only thing standing between a person and real danger. So the next time thunder rolls in and your body responds before your mind does, that isn't weakness, and it isn't irrational fear left over from childhood. It's a direct transmission from every ancestor who ever stood exposed under an open sky, with no walls, no explanation, and no choice but to feel small in front of something enormous. They didn't have physics. They had gods and myths and stories about hammers and chariots crossing the heavens, because those stories were the only way to make an incomprehensible sound make sense. You have the physics now. You know exactly what's happening. Rapidly heated air expanding faster than the speed of sound. Nothing more mysterious than that. But knowing the mechanism doesn't override the wiring. The flinch still comes first. The explanation still comes second, just like it always has. So somewhere, right now, a storm is still rolling in. Somewhere on this planet. And somewhere, a human being is feeling their chest tighten before they even decide to be afraid, carrying, without realizing it, the exact same reaction their ancestors carried, standing exposed under a sky that once seemed to have no explanation at all.